It's Trundl Talks. It's Trundl Talks. It's Trundl Talks.
Welcome, guys. Welcome, Tamanna. Welcome, Celina. Welcome, Darline. I'm really glad that you guys could make it for this podcast episode of Trundl Talks. We're going to talk about communities and collaboration today. And being a part of Atlassian Community, I was really hoping that I could talk to you guys and pick your brains on some of the topics that revolve around communities and how we could effectively or work with as a community. So to begin with, my first question to you guys would be, uh, what is community for you? What do you think is a community, and how did the community program at Atlassian come into existence?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start with the most last or the latter part of it in terms of how we came to be. But Atlassian users started coming together organically and just meeting with one another. And our first official one was in McLean, Virginia, and there was over 80 attendees, and Atlassian saw an opportunity to say, okay, well, if we know that our users are wanting this, how can we build a structural program that would effectively meet them where they are, as well as provide them an opportunity to continue to connect, not just in these areas, but globally. So, after what, God, how long has it been, Darline? Like forever, but
Yeah, 2011 the program started. The
Yeah.
program was started. Yeah.
The online?
No, for our in-person. So community for us started in person.
Yeah.
We didn't have an online.
That was actually 2006.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So 2006 was in McLean. That's when we saw that everything was happening, or at least the response was there. And then 2011 is how it was structured today, or at least, or not really structured today because we've made a lot of adjustments to it. But yeah, I think that's what's really great about Atlassian is the response that they saw this as an opportunity to bring members, or more specifically product users, together and figure out a way or a process to just make it easy for individuals to come, and especially our evangelists, who we now call our leaders, because they're the boots on the ground. They're constantly advocating our products and, more importantly, educating others around them. So, we constantly try to keep a pulse on what that looks like. And yeah, I mean, the rest is history. We keep trugging forward and trying to figure out ways to build momentum. As far as community, I'm sure Tamanna and Darline can also answer what community means to them and anything else y'all want to add.
Yeah, go ahead, guys.
Yeah. So for me, community, what I've seen in my short span of joining Atlassian is the feeling of giving back to the community. It's not like you gain, like the intent is not to gain, but to more or so to give back to the community. And I've seen leaders contributing to the best of efforts and doing events and contributing online. So for me, it would be like giving back, and that is what my definition is.
Darline?
Yeah, I agree with what Celina and Tamanna said. So just coming together to both give and to get, and to just find people that are thinking and interested in the same things that you are, but also bringing other things to the table, fostering a sense of connection, especially, we're just tiny little specks of dust in this big wide world. So building those connections.
Awesome. Celina, just adding on to what you just said about that the program started in somewhere around 2006, that's somewhere around 14, 15 years since the program is already up and running. What changes do you see since the program, was conceptualized over the years? Like earlier, it was just an in-person event. Now it has spread all over the world, and now we also have an online community, and there's so much collaboration between the both of the communities. How do you see the changes that have come into the picture?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing for us was recognizing, that we couldn't just be in person or provide in-person events because of scalability, and we know that there's just such a larger audience that we can really connect with. So, we had launched the online community and separate initiatives that were going on, yet still with the same objective of connecting individuals. And a couple of years ago, we recognized that we can no longer be cousins, we had to be more sisters. And so we created an umbrella of community. So that way the online space and the in-person or event space would be more collaborative, would be more in sync in terms of messaging, the way that we would offer opportunities for our community leaders, ways that we could engage and also help our product teams along with other teams within our organization feel that much more aware and educated around the opportunities that community would bring. So, the first thing that really changed was the growth of our team. It was Darline, myself, Cassie came on, we had our previous manager too, and just trying to hold the fort down, but yet scale and really bring resources that would be beneficial for our event side. And when we came together with the online and events, we now have a team of 10. So, focusing on the online space, focusing on the event space, from operations to community management, which is really, focusing with our leaders and the resources and making sure that we're constantly keeping a pulse on, on our champions. And just, again, what feedback are we getting and how are we translating that to our organization and being more intentional about it? So, yeah, I think there's been a lot of resources and processes that we've established to align with not only our company's goals, but also, providing the feedback back into the funnel and saying, hey, here are some opportunities that we should really be thinking through. And here are some, strategies that we should be implementing. So.
Sure. Nice. Darline, my question, a question that I have for you is, how do you drive collaboration among the leaders? So since the leaders itself are spread, across the world, but there's still a uniformity when it comes to the essence of a community event, or the essence of what you say the online leadership is, the way even in a simple thing as answering a post on the community, there's a structure to it, and there's a sense of uniformity, a sense of family inside it. How do you guys maintain the collaboration between the leaders itself who drive this community initiative?
Totally. I think we're really fortunate to have the leaders that we do have, because they do a lot of that organically and on their own. They're really conscious of new leaders and helping them feel really comfortable in the program, directing them to resources, jumping in on their ACE events, especially now that they're virtual, drawing attention to their questions in the online community or the discussions. So a lot of that happens naturally between leaders. I think that happens because people are having the same pain points, or they're seeing somebody dealing with something that they resolved before, so they want to pay it forward. The sense of altruism that goes on with our leaders is really phenomenal. So I want to start by saying that they make it very easy already naturally to connect with each other. But from our end, we do our best just to listen. I think that's really the most important job that we have as community managers, because it is our community, but really it's the community of the leaders. And we never want the impression or the feeling to be that we're the one who's driving change or changes to the process, changes to the program. That's all coming from leader feedback. So try to keep that at the forefront. We make tools available like Slack so people can ping each other. We give access to the leader instance of Confluence, where leaders can also coordinate. There are city groups in the online community where they can coordinate not just with each other, but with their members. And those are based on the asks of our leaders. So we make it our sole mission just to listen and then act on the feedback that we're getting from leaders and making whatever it is that they might need available to them so that they can be successful.
Makes sense. Tamanna, I have a question for you. So, I've been part of a couple of other communities as well, and Celina and Darline, feel free to join in on this. But one thing which I have felt personally, which I have surprisingly never felt at all in the Atlassian community program, that's the reason I'm asking you guys, is there has been sense when communities, start breaking up into individuals versus the community. Do you guys have faced similar challenges over the years when you set up the program or even now? And specifically when it's, going all virtual now? And in such cases, how do you as, people who manage the entire concept of community at such a large scale manage those differences?
Yeah, I think Celina would be, or Darline would be better able to answer that, because I've not seen in particular breaking up of communities. I've seen people are helping other communities as well, that even if they are not able to, schedule events, they are coming up forward for, becoming a speaker or, sharing posts online. So I've not seen that breaking up of communities, but I've seen that they are helping other communities as well. So
Yeah.
over to you too.
I definitely will piggyback off of that. Tamanna hit it right on the dot, because the thing is, that's what makes our community very special. And again, it's going back to what Darline said. Our leaders are really the magic behind our community. We started to understand that was really our core, and our community leaders continue to help engage and to understand and keep us aware of how do we keep that fresh and collaborative? How do we keep that element of community sacred, as well as, that we're continuing to allow it to thrive and to nurture and to really come in with the sense of we're listening to what is needed versus putting a sense of demand that's what needs to be in place. I think the key thing to understanding individuals and how to continue to help a community rise is to really understand the individuals that are a part of it, and really understand what they're needing. And a lot of our, within even the America side, we've had discussions around collaborating with like other agile communities. And what's cool about that is that we have a sense of like, yes, this is a community to help bring Atlassian product users. But that doesn't mean like, oh, you've never used an Atlassian product, you're not welcome here. It's very inclusive. It's a matter of like, hey, you know what? I've always heard of Atlassian. I've never really understood what it means. And then all of a sudden they join and they're like, what? I didn't even know y'all had Trello, or I didn't even know that, you use Jira. Or, I came in that way too. I was, using Jira at a startup and using HipChat, one of our old products, and didn't know it was associated with Atlassian until I came into the community, and I was blown away. I was like, oh, duh, Celina. But that's the great, side of this, is that even our leaders are constantly raising their hands and saying, hey, is it cool if we can align our efforts with X community? Because we really feel like they're intertwined and there's so much opportunity for them to understand one another. We're not apprehensive about that, nor, we actually encourage it, because again, our leaders and our communities, individual and as a whole, really have a better pulse of what's going on with individual local areas. So for us, it's like educate us, feed us, and then that way we can provide the resources that'll make them successful.
Yeah, I would agree with both Tamanna and Celina, and I think what makes our community so great is that we don't have a one-size-fits-all when it comes to how you can be a leader, how you can participate in community, how you can, there's no like prescriptive way of being a community member. So that gives the leaders autonomy over, the topics that they might want to present to their groups, but then it also is helpful to us because they can funnel that feedback back, like Celina was saying, to us, not just about the products, but also about the program. So if we have processes in place that might work in one region, but they don't work in another, we can tweak it and kind of give them the flexibility of being able to do what they think is best for their community. And that can mean, as Celina described, bringing in other agile groups or other not Atlassian specific topics to their members, as long as it's within the same spirit of our community program. So there's that collective experience of being part of the Atlassian community, but then there's the flexibility and the autonomy for them to drive activity and like what they think is relevant in their local communities.
Great. One thing which I personally felt, and I've heard it from a lot of other leaders as well, is how great the recognition program is when it comes to the Atlassian community. You know, be it from as simple as a normal swag item to, you know, one of the best feelings that I've had when I was sitting in front row at a summit. You know, how does that recognition program come into picture? Is it something that comes organically, or does it, like, there's a lot of thought go behind the picture? Who, you know, as you said, that leaders are the heartbeat of the program. So you kind of constantly are always working on how to build a better recognition program for the community.
Yeah. Darlene, I don't know if you want to take that one, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be like, yes, +1.
So yeah, feedback, really, when we see especially when we see a trend between leaders, those are the things that we kind of chase after. As community managers, we do have a lot of one-on-one conversations with leaders, and we have that high-level visibility as to what their needs might be. We send out lots of surveys, we have lots of one-on-one calls and email back and forth. However, leaders prefer to communicate with us, and then we try to funnel that back to the business and then also add on to it. So for example, in the last year, we started making all certifications free for leaders to our, like if you want to be a Jira admin or a Confluence admin, and that was based directly off of leader feedback. We saw a trend of lots of requests coming in for it. We were only offering, I think, like 1 or 2, and then we connected with our internal teams to say, hey, this is a need, this is something that they really find valuable, really help drive their success as leaders and as Atlassian users. What can we do to speak to that? So we put a lot of thought into it, but it's thought based on leader feedback, because sometimes we'll be like, oh, we have all these great ideas, and then we realize, wait, we're not the ones who are actually going to be benefiting from this, so we shouldn't have like the strongest voice here. It should really be coming from the leaders. But like we also really enjoy like the surprise and delight activities where it's like not necessarily built into the official perks, like our published perks of the program, but just little ways that we can say, you're doing amazing, thank you so much, we appreciate you. That is always at the forefront for us too. Like, how can we make sure that leaders know how much we value them and like really feel part of the Atlassian fabric?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the human component, right? Like at the end of the day, you know, we're working with individuals. And the thing is also, you know, coming back from feedback is that Darlene's region or Tamanna's region, in terms of like, whether it's, you know, there's different needs, and yet we try to also figure out like, what's the universal stuff and what's the individual stuff? Because again, we can't fit everyone into a specific need or response. It's going to always look different. But I think we always try to connect it into the education, the empower, and the celebration of it. It's like, how can we do that? But yeah, our leaders are always willing to provide feedback, which is, you know, the fuel that keeps this burning. So yeah.
Awesome. Guys, just closing down on last couple of 2 questions I have. One is, do you feel geography ever makes a difference? So basically, like Tamanna, you had the India and the APAC region. Celina, you had the Americas. We have Darline, it's the side of it. Do you guys feel that geography makes a difference in the way the community behaves?
I wouldn't say this. I wouldn't necessarily. Oh, sorry, Tamanna. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay. No, so it's very, like, when it comes to a leader, I think leader-wise it might be different, but community-wise I've not seen much difference, other than in APAC side, the huge number of people would be there on some meetups, and there will be no person attending those. So like them, other than that, I've not seen much difference. maybe I don't know more about the other regions, that's why. But I've seen the same kind of enthusiasm and same kind of recognition that is happening across all the regions. So which drives the leaders to contribute at the same level. So that's what I've seen so far.
Yeah.
Talin, please.
Oh, I was going to say the same thing. I think like the overall, like if we had to describe an average community member or a community leader, the words that we would use would be probably the same regardless of region. But how they might be trying to achieve success for their local community might change. The tactics that they use. So they might have more like panel discussions, or maybe they'll have more demos if that's what their community needs, or maybe they'll break up into smaller groups if they have 100 people showing up. So it's more different formats, but still with the same ultimate goal of being there to connect with each other, to discuss their experience, and just to have fun as well. So I wouldn't say it changes, but of course the needs might change. So what might work in the Americas may not work as well for people in APAC or in EMEA. An example of that might be the new event in bags that we've shipped. Before, we had these really big sandwich boards, and I know for people who might be driving, it's easier to walk around with, but for people like in Amsterdam who are on a tram or on a bike, that becomes a little bit cumbersome. So we get that feedback and we try to act on it so that it can be something that's a little bit more universal for everyone. But there might be geographical needs, but ultimately the goal is the same.
Yeah, agree with all of that. I think also one of the things that I've noticed, even like with Latin America, culturally, right, the way that things are promoted, the sense of topics too, because when it comes to talking to our product teams, we might see geographically, we might see a shift in product usage. So like in Latin America, it's very heavy on Trello and Jira. So also coming into that, side of things from what are we providing them in terms of content? Does this make sense? And then offering it to everyone, but 100% agree with everything that Tamanna and Darline said.
Awesome. The closing question that I have for you guys is, with the pandemic in the picture, not sure when we are going to have more virtual events, more physical events. How do you see the community program evolving, post-COVID era? Do you guys visualize or feel that we'll someday sooner than later going to go back to our physical in-person events, or a trend will follow and people will, because there have been a good amount of folks turning up for the virtual events as well, that there would be steady increase in the virtual events, or maybe it will be a mix, probably just a quick 30-40 second input from all of you.
Yeah, I feel they are going to coexist, like the virtual and in person, if we see the future of things, because in some region it's going to be still some restrictions would be there, but some regions would open up the restriction and the in-person events will prevail. So both are going to coexist. It also depends. Like in one case, if a speaker is from another region and he wants to host a session in a geographically different location, then it makes easy for that person to hold it virtually. So those kind of instances, if we see more coming in the future, then it should coexist both in virtual and in person.
Yeah.
Celina, go ahead.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I think, as crazy as our circumstances have been, recently, it also provided an opportunity for us to understand that this is an actual opportunity for us to grow and to think outside the box, because we are seeing a high response from these virtual events, that we're actually able to engage with individuals that we weren't able, or our leaders weren't able to engage with before. We're seeing a higher level of collaboration among online and in person. We're starting to see this really the symbiotic relationship happening between the online and the virtual element. For future state, yeah, absolutely, they're going to, I think, coexist. They're absolutely, but it's up to us to just continue to keep a pulse on that, to see how we're, aligning with our leaders and what their needs are. So that way they feel that much more inclined to be successful and feel supported. So, yeah.
Yeah, I co-sign everything that Celina and Tamanna just said. Feedback from leaders is that, of course, it's an adjustment. A lot of them miss seeing their members in person. We all miss seeing them in person. But the flip side is, like, I know we've all sat in on ACE events, virtual ACE events now. We have lots of other Atlassians from product teams who are jumping in. Leaders are able to play around with the times a little bit more, because it doesn't necessarily have to be like a 2-hour event that they have to get to set up and think about food. They can just say, okay, let's meet for lunch. Let's have a breakfast. Let's try it at this time. So I can see beyond, like, post COVID, I don't know if we'll ever be back to normal, but I can definitely see a world where there's a balance and a mix of virtual and in-person events.
Great. That's it for me. Thank you so much, Tamanna, Celina, and Darline. It was lovely talking to you guys. Please stay safe, and hope we can continue the amazing work that you guys are doing. And from all the community leaders, I would ask, thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
guys.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, hey.